Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a doctor caught in Missouri's deadly Civil War crossfire. Joseph Mercer is confronted by a militiaman who accuses him of being on the wrong side of the conflict. But what happened next left everyone in shock. Please subscribe to our channel and comment where you're listening from. The Crossroads, Missouri Territory, October 1883. Joseph Mercer paused at the weathered signpost, squinting at its faded directions in the fading light. 2 years of war had left the wooden marker bullet-scarred and nearly illegible. Westerly led to Fairview, his hometown, while the southern fork continued toward Miller's Creek. Home was still 5 miles distant, and dusk was settling over the Missouri countryside. He adjusted his medical bag and chose the Fairview Road, eager to complete his journey before 2 years serving as a surgeon with the Union Army had taught him that nightfall brought dangers, especially in contested border territories like western Missouri, where neighbor fought neighbor and loyalties shifted like autumn leaves in the wind. The road curved through a stretch of dense woodland. Joseph's boots crunched on fallen leaves, the sound unnervingly loud in the stillness. When he heard hoofbeats approaching, he stepped aside, waiting for the rider to pass. The man who emerged from the trees rode a lathered horse and wore a partial blue uniform, Union militia rather than regular army. His beard was unkempt, his eyes hard beneath his forage. "Evening," Joseph offered cautiously. The rider reined in, studying Joseph with unconcealed suspicion. "You're a long way from anywhere, friend." "Heading to Fairview. It's my hometown." "That's so?" The militiaman's hand rested casually near his holstered revolver. "Strange time to be traveling alone." "I've been discharged. I was a surgeon with the 8th Missouri Infantry." Joseph kept his voice steady, his hands visible. "Just trying to get home." The militiaman's eyes narrowed. "Papers?" Joseph reached slowly into his coat pocket for his discharge documents. As he withdrew them, a sealed letter slipped out, falling to the dirt. The militiaman dismounted quickly to retrieve it. "What's this?" He turned the envelope over, examining the broken Confederate seal. Joseph's throat tightened. "Medical note from a Confederate surgeon at Chattanooga. We treated prisoners together. Mighty friendly with the enemy, aren't you?" The militiaman broke the already opened seal, scanning the content. His expression darkened. "This mentions shipments along the western road. Weapons? Supplies?" "No, medical supplies, Joseph. Dr. Ellis was noting what their field hospital." "It's professional correspondence." "Mum. Professional correspondence?" He did, mocking. "With a rebel doctor." He crumpled the letter, his hand moving to his revolver. "You know what we do with rebel sympathizers in these parts?" "I'm not a sympathizer. I serve the Union." "That uniform you're not wearing tells a different story." The militiaman drew his Colt. "You're wearing the wrong color, friend. Out here, you're either blue or gray. And if you ain't blue—" The accusation struck Joseph a physical. 2 years of removing bullets, amputating limbs, and watching young men die for the Union. And now he stood accused of disloyalty because of a letter from a fellow doctor. "Check my discharge papers," Joseph insisted. "Captain James Ellis, 8th Missouri. I treated your wounded comrades after Pea Ridge." The militiaman stepped closer, revolver leveled at Joseph's chest. "Papers can be forged, especially by rebel spies. A doctor, not a spy. We'll let Captain Thorne decide that. He's got ways of making rebel tongues loosen." The name sent ice through his veins. Thorne's militia had a reputation for summary justice, hanging suspected Confederate sympathizer at trial. "I'm telling you the truth," said, fighting steady. "I'm loyal to the Union." "Then you won't mind coming with me to answer." The militiaman gestured with his revolver. "Mount up behind me. Try anything and I'll put a ball through your spine." Joseph weighed his options. Running meant certain death. Compliance might lead to the same end once in Thorne's custody, but at least offered time. Before he could decide, hoofbeats sounded from the direction he'd come. The militiaman turned slightly, distracted by the approaching rider. In that instant, Joseph acted on instinct. He swung his heavy medical bag, catching the militiaman's gun arm. The revolver discharged, the bullet whining harmlessly into the tree. They grappled briefly before Joseph landed a solid punch, sending the man staggering backward. The militiaman recovered quickly, raising his revolver again. "That was a mistake, Doc." The second rider burst into view, a Confederate irregular, in a faded gray coat, carbine already raised. He fired without hesitation, and the militiaman crumpled to the ground, a red stain spreading across his blue jacket. Joseph stared in horror, first at the fallen militiaman, then at his unexpected savior. "Looks like I got here just in time," the Confederate said, dismounting. "These Union boys don't much care for due process." Joseph knelt beside the fallen man, medical instincts taking over, but the bullet had found its mark. The militiaman was dead before his body had settled in the autumn leaves. "Why did you shoot him?" Joseph demanded. The Confederate shrugged. "He was fixing to shoot you." He extended a hand. "Matthew Sloan, you can thank me later." Joseph ignored the offered hand. "You just killed a Union soldier. They'll hunt us both now." "Welcome to Missouri, friend." Sloan grinned without humor. "Everyone's hunting everyone." Voices drifted from up the road. More riders approaching. Sloan cocked his head, listening. "That'll be the rest of his patrol. Unless you fancy explaining why you're standing over a dead bluebelly, I suggest we ride. Now, I'm not going anywhere with you. Suit yourself." Sloan mounted his horse. "But when Captain Thorne finds you with his man, your Union credentials won't matter much, especially not with—" He nodded toward the Confederate letter, still crumpled on the ground beside. Joseph hesitated only a moment before retrieving his medical bag. A damning letter. The voices were growing closer. "Where?" he asked. "Southeast. I know a place." Sloman extended his, pulling Joseph behind him on the horse. "Hold tight, Doctor. The war just got a lot more personal for you." As they galloped away from the crossroads, Joseph looked back once at the dead militiaman. One chance encounter, one misunderstood letter, one dead soldier. His life as he'd known it was over. Whatever neutrality he'd tried to maintain as a doctor had vanished at gunshot. In a war where everyone chose sides, fate has chosen, whether he wanted it, Widow's Farm. They rode hard through deepening twilight, avoiding roads in favor of creek beds and forest paths. Joseph clung to the saddle, the reality of his situation sinking in with each jolting stride. He was now a fugitive, implicated in the death of a Union militiaman. "How much farther?" he called over the thunder of hooves. "Not far," Sloan replied. "Just past that ridge." After another mile they crested a wooded hill. Below, in a small valley, sat a modest farmhouse, lamplight glowing from a single window. "Sarah Burns' place," Sloan explained as they approached. "Her husband was killed at Wilson's Creek. First battle of the war in the Confederate? Union, actually." Sloan's tone carried a hint of irony. "But Sarah doesn't hold grudges. She helps those who need it, regardless of color." They dismounted in the farmyard. Before they reached the porch, the door opened, revealing a woman holding a shot with practice. "That you, Matthew?" Her voice was steady, neither friendly nor— "It's me." She stepped into the yard, keeping— Moonlight revealed a woman of 30, her face careworn but handsome, brown hair pulled back severely. "Who's this?" Studying Joseph. "Dr. Joseph Mercer," Sloan answered. "Had a disagreement with some of Thorne's boys." Her gaze sharpened. "Disagreement?" "One of them's dead," Sloan said flatly. "Not the doctor's doing, but Thorne won't make that distinction." Sarah Burns' expression remained unchanged, but Joseph noticed her grip tighten on the shotgun. "Inside," she said finally. "Both of you." The farmhouse interior was simple but neat. A stone fireplace provided warmth, and handmade furniture spoke of a life built through hard work. On the mantel sat a daguerreotype of a young man in Union blue. "Your husband?" Joseph. Sarah nodded once, setting the shotgun aside but keeping it within reach. "Jacob died 2 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry about something these days. How much trouble follows you this time?" "Thorne's militia was patrolling the western road. By now they've found their missing man. They'll be searching, but not at night. Not in these woods." Sarah poured coffee into tin cups, her movements economical. "And tomorrow?" "We'll be gone by dawn." She passed the cups to them. "Where to?" "South, then east." Sloan glanced at Joseph. "The doctor needs to disappear for a while." "I need to get to Fairview," Joseph corrected. "My family's—" Sloan shook. "First place they'll look." "He's right," Sarah said. "Thorne knows every family in 3 counties. If you have people in Fairview, that's where he'll wait for you." Joseph sank a chair and settling. "I haven't seen my brother's 14. They'll hang you before you reach the front door." "Then what do you suggest? That I run forever because your trigger finger?" Sloan's expression hardened. "Trigger finger? Saved your life and ruined it in the same moment." "Enough." Sarah's voice cut through their argument. "What's done is done." "All right," she turned to Joe. "Doctor, you have 2 choices, run or fight. Either way, you can't go home yet." "I'm a doctor, not a fighter." "Everyone's a fighter in Missouri these," she replied, "whether they want to be or not." Sloan set down his cup. Sarah's got a point. Thorne won't stop looking. Man's got a reputation to maintain. Joseph studied them both. Who are you people? Really? A silent communication passed between Sarah and Sloane before she answered. We help people get to safety. People caught in the middle of this war. You're smugglers? Among other things, Sloane admitted. Missouri's torn three ways, Union, Confederate, and those just trying to survive. We helped the third group. Joseph laughed. I was supposed to be done with the war. 2 years patching up boys just for them to get shot again. I took an oath to heal, not harm. Noble sentiment, Sarah said without mockery, but this war doesn't respect oaths. A tense silence fell. Outside, an owl called, and you should rest, Sarah. Loft's got clean straw. We'll talk more in the morning. After she showed them upstairs, Sloane stretched out on a pallet, seemingly unconcerned about predicament. How do you know her? Joseph asked quietly. Her farm's a way station for people heading east. Runaway slaves, Sloane nodded, and deserters from both armies. Men who've had enough killing. Joseph digested. And you? Confederate irregular helping escape? I wear gray when it suits me, Sloane said. Blue too sometimes. Colors don't mean much to me. They meant enough for you to kill that militiaman. Sloane raised himself on one elbow. Listen, Doc, in this part of Missouri there's no clean hands. Thorne's militia burns farms belonging to suspected Southern sympathizers. Confederate guerrillas like Quantrill murder civilians who support the Union. Most folks just want to be left alone, but everyone's forced to. I made my choice when I joined the Union Army, and now circumstances have chosen again. Sloane settled back his pallet. Get some sleep. Tomorrow won't be any simpler. Joseph lay awake long after Sloane's breathing deepened into sleep. Through a small window he could see stars scattered across the night sky, the same stars that shone over Fairview, just 15 miles distant, yet impossibly far. Before dawn, voices from below woke him. He descended to find Sarah and Sloane in urgent conversation that ceased when he appeared. Trouble? He asked. Riders passed on the main road before sunrise, Sarah explained, heading toward Fairview. Thorne's men? She nodded. Looking for a doctor traveling with a Confederate irregular. Joseph's heart. I need to warn my family. Too late for that. Thorne's men are between us and Fairview. Then I'll go around them. And lead them straight to your mother's door? Sarah asked sharply. Think, Doctor. Thorne won't harm your family unless they harbor you. Stay away, and they're safer. The logic was painful but undeniable. Then what? Sloane checked his revolver. We move east. I know people in Jefferson City who can help get you north to Iowa, Union territory where Thorne has no authority. And my family just wonders what happened to me. Sarah approached, her expression softening. I can get word to them. Let them know you're alive at least. It was a small comfort, but the only one available. Joseph nodded his acceptance. We leave in 10 minutes, Sloane announced. Pack whatever food you can spare, Sarah. As she gathered supplies, Joseph noticed a loose floorboard shift beneath her. She caught his gaze and held it, a silent warning in her eye. Later, prepared to depart, she pressed a small packet into Joseph's hand. Medicine, laudanum and quinine, likely more valuable than gold where you're heading. Thank you, for everything. Her expression remained guarded, but her eyes had softened. This war makes strangers of us all, Doc. Remember who you were before it. That's the only way back. As they mounted up, Joseph cast one last look at the farmhouse, an ordinary place made extraordinary by circumstance, a neutral ground in a territory that allowed for no neutrality, just like the burning church. They rode eastward through back country, avoiding main roads. By midday, dark clouds gathered and rain began to fall, a mixed blessing that would cover their tracks but make travel more difficult. There's a settlement ahead, Sloane said. They paused to rest the horses. Millersburg, small place. Might be safe to stop, get supplies. Might be. Town's divided like everywhere else, but they have a church that helps travelers. Joseph studied his companion. Despite 2 days together, Sloane remained an enigma, clearly familiar with Confederate movements, yet helping fugitive slaves, comfortable with violence, yet showing unexpected compassion. "Why are you helping me?" Joseph finally asked. Sloane adjusted his saddle. "Maybe I like your company." "The truth." Sloane's flippant manner faded. "Sarah asked me to get you east. That's enough reason. There's more to it." A long silence stretched before Sloane spoke again. "My brother was at Chattanooga. Wounded, leg amputation." He glanced at Joseph. "A Union surgeon saved his life. Could have been you." Joseph said slowly, understanding dawning. "Professional courtesy." Something. Sloane remounted. "Come on. We'll reach Millersburg by dusk." The rain intensified as they approached the small settlement, barely more than a crossroads with a church, general store, and scattered houses. The white steeple of the church rose above surrounding trees, a beacon in the gathering gloom. "We'll try the church first," Sloan decided. They tethered their horses behind the simple clapboard building and approached the side door. Sloan knocked in a distinct pattern. After a moment, the door opened slowly. An elderly black man peered out, expression cautious. "Brother Isaiah," Sloan greeted him. "Two travelers seeking shelter." The man assessed them before opening the door wider. "Come quickly." Inside, the church was dimly lit by a single lantern. Pews had been pushed aside to make room for pallets where several figures, a woman with two small children, an elderly couple, and a young black man whose leg was bandaged. More refugees quietly. Isaiah nodded. "Farm burned yesterday. Militia said they were Confederate sympathizers." He glanced at the young black man, found him in the woods, escaped from a plantation near Springfield. Joseph moved immediately to the injured man, medical instinct taking over. "May I?" he asked, opening his. The man eyed him warily, but nodded. Joseph carefully unwrapped the dirty bandage, revealing an infected bullet wound. "How long?" "4 days. Overseer shot me." Joseph cleaned the wound with supply of poultice and re-bandaged. "You need to stay off this and he measured laudanum from Sarah's medicine packet for the pain. While Joseph treated the wounded, Sloan conferred with Isaiah in hushed tones. Their conversation ended abruptly when the church door burst open, admitting a middle-aged man in rain-soaked clothes. "Militia's coming," he announced urgently, "searching every building." "Thorne?" Sloan asked sharply. "No, but his lieutenant, Shaw." Isaiah moved quickly to extinguish the lantern. "Everyone stay calm. Doctor, you and Mr. Sloan should hide in the cellar." "What about them?" Joseph indicated. "Church has been helping folks since before the war." Isaiah. "Shaw knows better than to interfere too much, but you two are being hunted specifically." A trapdoor beneath the pulpit revealed a small cellar. Joseph and Sloan descended into darkness as Isaiah replaced the carpet covering. Minutes later, they heard boots on the wooden floor above, muffled voices, questions being asked. "They're looking for us," Sloan whispered. The voices grew loud. An argument. Then a woman's scream followed by a crash. "Something's wrong," Joseph said. A new sound reached them. Crackling flames. Smoke began seeping through the floorboards. "They've set fire to the church," Sloan realized. Joseph pushed against the trapdoor, but something heavy had been placed on it. "We're trapped." Above them, the sounds of struggle continued briefly, then faded. The smoke thickened. They forced everyone out and barred the doors. The cellar had no windows, no other exit. As smoke filled their small space, Joseph searched desperate. The wall, running his hands along the earth, and "Should be loose here. Old tunnel." Together they dug at the packed earth until a section gave, revealing a narrow path. As flames consumed the church above, they crawled through the tunnel, emerging behind a nearby storage shed. The scene before them was chaos. The church blazed against the night sky, illuminating militia soldiers herding the refugees toward wagons. Isaiah lay motionless on the ground, blood darkening his. "We have to help them," started, but Sloan held him back. "You can't. They'll kill you too." "I'm a doctor. I took an oath." "You can't help anyone if you're dead. Those people are being arrested, not executed, but we," he indicated their mud-covered forms, "are walking corpses if Shaw spots us." Cruel logic. They watched helpless as the refugees were loaded into wagons. The young man Joseph had treated caught his eye briefly before being. "Where will they take them?" "County jail, probably." The black man, Sloan's expression darkened. "Return to his owner if they can determine who that is." As the militia departed, the church collapsed in a shower of sparks. With the soldiers gone, Joseph rushed to Isaiah's, but it was too late. A bullet wound to the chest had ended the old man's life. "He resisted them," Joseph said, closing the man's eyes gently. "Fought his whole life," I'd quietly. "First as a slave, then as a free man helping others to freedom." They buried Isaiah behind the church he had served, using charred boards to mark his grave. By then, dawn was approaching. "We need to move," Sloan urged. "Shaw will have men watching the roads." "Where now?" "East. There's a river crossing 20 miles. Friend operates a ferry." As they prepared to leave, Joseph studied the smoldering ruins of the church. "This war," said bitterly. "How did helping others become a crime?" "War makes criminals of good men and heroes of villains," replied. "The trick is remembering which you truly are when it's over." They rode away from Millersburg as the first light of day touched the horizon. Behind them, smoke still rose from the church that had stood for decades before being destroyed in a single night of violence. Joseph carried with him the image of Isaiah's lifeless form and the faces of those taken away. people whose only crime was seeking shelter from a war that recognized no neutrality, no middle ground. He had joined the Union Army. Now he was sure what to believe. The right. They reached the river crossing by nightfall. A small ferry operated by an elderly man named Silas offered passage across the swollen waters. Joseph noticed Sloan exchange a subtle sign with the ferryman, some prearranged signal of recognition. "Two to cross," Sloan said. Silas nodded. After dark. Patrols on the east bank. They concealed themselves in a riverside cabin until midnight. Joseph tended to a cut on Sloan's arm from their escape through the church tunnel, the familiar routine of medical care temporarily grounding him in a world spinning out of control. "How much farther to Jefferson City?" as he tied off a bandage. 2 days hard riding. Then we find my contact who can get you papers to travel north. The question that had been building in Joseph finally emerged. "And you? What happens to you after?" Sloan smiled faintly. "Back to the shadows. This war still has work for men like men who've seen both sides and found neither wholly right nor wrong." It was the most philosophical statement Joseph had heard from his companion. "How did you come to this life? Helping people escape?" Sloan was silent for so long that Joseph thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. "I owned slaves, small tobacco farm near Springfield. Believed it was my right," expression hardened. "Then watched Union militia execute my neighbor for refusing to take a loyalty oath. Watched Confederate guerrillas hang a family for having a Union flag. Started to see there were no heroes, just men killing other men for wearing the wrong color. So you chose no color. I chose humanity over flags." Sloan checked his revolver by lamplight. "Sold my farm. Used the money to help people escape the fight. Both sides call me traitor. Maybe they're right." Joseph absorbed this revelation. "And the slaves you owned? Free now. Some went north. Some fight for the Union." A ghost of a smile crossed Sloan's face. "One's a ferryman." Joseph glanced through the cabin window at Silas, seeing him with new understanding. At midnight, they boarded the small ferry. Silas worked silently, using the current to guide them across the dark river. They were midway across when lanterns appeared on the western bank. "Riders," Silas warned, his voice low. 6 horsemen appeared at the landing. They departed, torchlight revealing blue uniform. A voice carried across the water. "Return to shore immediately." "Shaw," Sloan muttered, drawing his revolver. Silas continued poling, his weathered face impassive. The riders fired warning shots, bullets splashing into the water around them. "Faster," Joseph, ducking low. "River has its own pace," Silas replied. "Can't hurry Providence." As they neared the eastern shore, 2 riders appeared on that bank as well. Joseph's heart sank, trapped between forces on both sides of the river. "We'll have to run for the trees," Sloan decided, checking his ammunition. But as they touched the eastern bank, the waiting riders approached, and Joseph realized they wore Confederate gray, not Union blue. "Sloan," one called quietly. "Quickly now." "It's a rescue, not an..." They scrambled ashore as Silas immediately began the return journey, creating distance. The Confederate officer, a lean man with a captain's insignia, nodded to Sloan, cutting it close. "Trouble at Millersburg," Sloan explained. "Church burned?" The captain cursed. "Isaiah? Dead." A moment of grim silence followed before the captain noticed Joseph. "Who's this?" "Dr. Joseph Mercer, Union Army surgeon. Accidentally became a wanted man." The captain's eyes narrowed suspicious. "Union?" "He's with me," Sloan said firmly, "and he's saved more Southern boys than you've recruited." After a tense moment, the captain nodded. "Mount up. We need to move before they find." They rode through dense forest, eventually reaching a small camp where a dozen Confederate irregulars. Joseph felt distinctly uncomfortable, surrounded by gray uniforms, but no one questioned his presence once Sloan vouched for him. As they prepared to continue at dawn, a scout rode in with news. "Captain Thorne himself is leading the pursuit now," reported. 30 men, moving fast. "Scott, the Confederate captain, Williams," Joseph studied a crude map. "They'll cut us off before Jefferson City." "What about the northern route?" "Through Coopersville." Williams shook his head. "Towns held by Union militia. They'd recognize you immediately." Joseph had been listening silently, but now an idea formed. "Not if I'm the one who enters town." All eyes turned to him. "I'm still a Union doctor, officially," Joseph "My discharge papers are genuine. If I enter Coopersville alone, I could secure passage for all of us." "And why would you do that?" Williams asked skeptically. "Because I've seen enough of this war to know that colors and uniforms don't determine right and wrong." Joseph met Sloan's gaze. "And because I owe him my life." After debate, They agreed. Joseph would enter Coopersville alone, using his Union credentials to arrange safe passage north. The risk was enormous. If Thorne had sent descriptions of him eastward, he'd be arrested immediately. At the edge of town, Sloan pulled him aside. "You don't have to do this. You could just keep riding north. Save yourself." "And abandon you after everything?" Joseph shook his. "I'm no longer sure what side I'm on, but I know what side of humanity I want to stand on." Sloan handed him a folded paper. "Contact information. People who can help once you reach Iowa. I'll see you on the North Road in 3 hours," Joseph promised. Entering Coopersville felt surreal. Union flags flew from the courthouse and hotel. Soldiers in blue uniforms patrolled openly. No one gave Joseph a second glance as he made his way to the stagecoach office. Using his discharge papers and the last of his money, he secured passage on a northbound coach for medical personnel and escorts, deliberately vague wording that would allow Sloan and the others to join him outside town. As he left the office, a hand gripped his arm. Joseph turned to find himself face to face with a Union officer, a captain's bars gleaming on his shoulders. "Dr. Mercer?" the man asked quietly. Joseph's blood ran cold. "Yes?" "Captain James Ellis, 8th Missouri Infantry," the name from Joseph's discharge papers. "I received a message from Sarah Byrne. You need help." Relief washed through Joseph. The underground network reached further than he'd imagined. Northern Road, Joseph. "Friends waiting. Meet me behind the 20 minutes in your papers." When Joseph arrived at the meeting point, Ellis was waiting with and Union escort. "Your friends will need these. My men will accompany you to the Iowa border. Official, medical." "Why are you risking?" Ellis "Because I've seen what Thorne's brand of justice. This war's about preserving the Union, not terrorizing its citizens." 2 hours later, Joseph rendezvoused with Sloan and the others on the road. The Confederate irregulars regarded the Union uniform with distaste, but understood the necessity. "Your captain friend came through," as they donned the blue coats. "Seems there are good men on both sides," Joseph. As they rode north with their Union escort, Joseph reflected on the journey that had led him. One chance encounter at a crossroad had pulled him into a world where uniforms and deeper truths, the men who wore them. "Strange, isn't it? You're finally wearing the right color." Joseph glanced down at the blue uniform, then at the gray-clad men, now disguised in identical blue. Maybe there is no right color, just right action. Ahead lay Iowa, relative safety, and uncertain future. Behind them, Missouri continued its brutal internal war. And somewhere in between, Joseph had found a truth more complex than the simple loyalties he'd once believed in. The war would end someday, and when it did, men would need to remember that beneath the blue and gray, they had always been the same color.